And welcome to another episode of Matt Talks Back, episode number 9 this time around. And we're just going a little bit bigger every single time. We were doing civic politics for the first 2 of the Comeback podcast. Now we're going big, going provincial. Kiel Giddens joins me on the show today. Kiel is our MLA for Prince George and Mackenzie. Welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time.
Hey, Matt, thanks. Appreciate the opportunity to chat today. And thanks for doing what you're doing. I think it fills a really good void in our voice for Prince George and Northern BC. I think we need to get some of our message out there, and people want some local content. So thanks for doing what you're doing. And the best voice in rock radio to do it. I was just saying before we started that I miss having Matt on the air. So this is great. But I miss having him call out some on a Friday afternoon, leaving work when he calls out Ozzy Osbourne on the radio. Those are one of the best voices in rock radio I can remember. So anyway, good to be here with you, Matt.
Hey, thank you very much, man. Yeah, I miss those days. I got to tell you, those the radio days were definitely fun. But I learned some great things in those days from my mentors like Ben Meisner. Mike Woodworth was a great news director at the time that taught me a lot of things too. So now I get to use the voice to maybe not call out great music, but maybe call out some better politics instead. Maybe that's what we're going to do.
There you go.
Yeah, so we're going to dive in a little bit. I want to hear a little bit about you, first of all. So how old are you exactly? I know you're not supposed to ask women that, but I think I can ask you that. I think that's okay.
It's all good. I actually turned 40 during last year's election campaign. So, I've had my birthday while I was door knocking and pretty exciting. But yeah, I turned 40 and I've got a couple of young kids and raising our family here in Prince George. It's the best place to live as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, absolutely. Northern BC is wonderful, especially if you're an outdoorsy type of person. We kind of have it all for that sort of thing. I actually have worked with your wife in the past. Your wife used to work for the BC Children's Hospital. Is that right?
Not the children. She worked for BC Cancer Foundation,
right.
So
right.
Maybe might have been through that. But that's great. She's very proud of my wife. She just finished her MBA actually, so pretty exciting time in our household. So shout out to her for her hard work.
Congratulations, Elise. That's huge. That's awesome. Now, did you grow up in Prince George or did you grow up in Mackenzie?
Actually, I grew up in Kamloops. So Elise, my wife, was born and raised here in Prince George, but grew up in Kamloops, similar size city in many ways. But I had gone to school in university down the Lower Mainland, and then lived in Victoria for a period as well, working in government then. I moved here in 2013, started a job with the pipeline project as we were looking to build LNG projects across the north. I opened the office for TC Energy and the Coastal GasLink pipeline at the time. So having family connection here. My wife's family's all here in Prince George, so it's been a great place to set our roots, and it's been no looking back ever since.
Kamloops and Prince George kind of similar. Geography is a little bit different, but when it just comes to the working method of both of those cities, kind of a similar way. Sort of blue collar is kind of what runs everything. You kind of jumped into a very similar sort of community at the same time, which definitely helps when you're looking at working with the community on building a project like that. So, yeah, interesting.
Exactly. There's only a few communities in the province. When you smell pulp mill, you know it's the smell of money, and that's the same joke in Kamloops. So, very similar communities in many ways. Got that working vibe to it. People working hard and blue collar, lots of forestry background as well. Come from a small business family. My dad has a business in Kamloops that's been going for now 111 years, and it's appliance and electronics repair business. So I worked there from time I was a kid actually, and my mom was a nurse. So definitely having grew up in a healthcare and small business kind of family. So definitely can relate to folks who here in Prince George who are very, very similar in many situations for sure.
Right. Okay, gotcha. Now, you went to UBC for schooling. You graduated with a Bachelor of Arts degree or a Bachelor of Arts and then a degree in political science. It seems like maybe a life of politics was something you kind of had in mind. Was that always the plan, to be on the political side of things, or did that come along while you were in school?
It actually came along while I was in school. I always had an interest in history, politics, and it just happened to be what I excelled in. I did the best in, and so I stuck on that path as I was early on in my university career. But yeah, it just one thing led to another, and I kept getting more involved, and had a chance to graduate with political science degree. And then I got an internship working with a federal cabinet minister in the Harper government. I worked for Chuck Strahl when he was the agriculture minister. Really principled, great individual to be able to learn from and be mentored from. Sadly, he's passed away recently, but really a fantastic stand-up, principled person to really have as an early mentor, and then stuck with politics after that. I chose to move to Victoria to focus on provincial policy. At a young age, I became interested in things like crown land policy, forest policy, mining, natural resources, that type of thing. And all that is actually, for the most part, the heavy decisions are all actually at the provincial level, let alone big things like healthcare and education that are also provincial. So that's why I chose to work in the provincial route. Worked in Victoria from 2007 to 2013 as a political staffer. So I worked for the labor minister for a period. I worked for the forest minister. I was chief of staff to the environment minister, and then chief of staff to the minister of transportation. So really great roles to get me going. And as you might know, Matt, pipelines are pretty political. So then I got hired out of government in politics to work and try to build support and political support for a pipeline project proposed, and I worked on that for about 12 years.
I mean, it must have been a great start to be able to see that many different sides of government. I mean, every different side kind of works a little differently. They all have different hands and different sides of things. Nice that you were able, in your first, what was that, 6 years there, 6 years there, being able to see that many different sides. You speak very well. Let's just be very straight up about it. You're what is the word? You're just, you've got your linguistic stuff together very well. I've seen you work at Chamber of Commerce events. I've seen you put on the spot in some, some pretty tense conversations when it comes to the pipeline, and you always seem to be able to find the right words. Where do those skills come from? Is this is public speaking something that you worked on in the past, or is this something that just kind of came along naturally with the jobs that you took on?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know if I think you're being a little more generous than I'd give myself, but in any case, I have something I've had to work at. It doesn't come naturally per se, but it's something that I have put myself in a position where I've had to kind of speak up publicly. I've had to be in front of in the hot seat. I've spoken at every regional district and local government council chambers across northern BC, and many times I've done media interviews. I've done national media and some of the controversial aspects of pipeline politics. So I have had to work at it over the years, and then it does actually translate well to politics. And when you're going door to door and trying to present yourself during a campaign, or do your televised debate on CKPG, all of that, it's a lot of practice. And then I have more practice since I've been in the legislature, getting up and they tell you, okay, we want you to go speak for 30 minutes on a topic, and so yeah, you got to get good at it quickly. So yeah, I'm still learning at it, but looking to improve day by day.
That's impressive. And the reason I brought it up, a couple of reasons. Number one, the number one fear in the world is public speaking, which blows my mind. You'd think it'd be death.
I can see that.
Yeah, like a painful death you'd think would be a much bigger fear for people. But no, it's public speaking. People would rather die a painful death than stand up in front of a crowd most of the time. So when I see somebody with those skills, you know that it's like it's either a natural thing for them where they just grew up in the middle of it and they were comfortable, or it's something that they had to work at. Now, when I look at the boards that you've been a part of too, these are all public speaking at the end of the day. You've been a part of the Spirit of the North Healthcare Foundation. You were president of the Prince George Chamber of Commerce recently as well. CNC's President's Industry Council, LNG Labor Working Group, plus, as you said, TC Energy's Public Affairs Manager and other positions in the business too. And then the multiple Chief of Staff positions you've had as well. So it definitely you've leaned into it. So if it's not a natural thing for you, props for leaning into it, because that's one of the toughest things that people find out there. And I think in politics, I think it's a skill that many of our politicians don't have enough of. Transparency is number one with you guys. I mean, we're handing you our tax dollars on a day-to-day basis, and we're just trusting that you guys aren't doing anything skeezy with them. So the best way to make sure that that's happening is transparency. And to be transparent, you got to communicate. So props to you for going on the path. The process is what gets us to these skills at the end of the day, and your process speaks for itself right here on this resume that you've thrown out there. Which one of those jobs and former positions do you think handed you the most skills that you're now using now that you're helping run our province?
Definitely my last role in pipeline, working for a pipeline company, and it was a project that saw right from the early days in the environmental assessment right through construction. So working on a project of that scale, when we had 20 different First Nations we worked with, we had numerous municipalities, we had provincial government to work with. That was communicating with a lot of stakeholders. That was communicating with a lot of members of the public, landowners across the project area. So all that, I think, built up, really my knowledge of Northern BC more than anything to help me bring that in. So, we listened to the concerns and aspirations of and tried to actually change the project based on public feedback. And I think politicians need to actually listen to make sure that, we actually are making policy that is actually going to benefit people, that's not going to have a detriment to them. And Matt, I think you hit the nail on the head before when you said transparency is key. I did work for an MLA at one point that said he had a sign in his office that he pointed to in every meeting, and it said, "Think like a taxpayer." And I think that's something that actually politicians these days need to think. There's only one taxpayer. We have multiple levels of government, and it's not government's money. It's actually taxpayers. It's the people's money that government is managing. So it needs to be transparent. It needs to be accountable, and that's something that we need to focus on. But yeah, when I was in those discussions on the pipeline, we had to be up in front answering hard questions each and every day, and that was a lot of problem solving during construction. I had, there's always going to be issues that pop up, and I was part of that, solving issues on the spot all the time. So great skills to be able to learn to bring into this job, and I hope I can contribute back for Prince George in that same way, and Mackenzie and our region here in Northern BC, certainly.
And then, yeah, another thing I really like that you're doing out there too. People that aren't following your Facebook page should definitely be doing that. I think you're doing a great job of highlighting not only what you're doing in Victoria, but even talking points of things that you're working towards as well. And we're going to dive into a couple of those things here in a little bit. You and Rosalind Bird, you're both first-time MLAs. Is that correct?
Yeah, big change this time in the legislature. Of course, Conservatives elected for the first time in many decades. But with that, a big changeover. Even the NDP and the Greens had a lot of turnover as well. So out of 93 MLAs, I think it was 57 of those are brand new to the legislature. So pretty massive turnover there, and something that steep learning curve for a lot of folks, but because like I said, I have worked at the legislature in the past in those political jobs that I held. So at least I knew where the bathrooms were. I could kind of sort my way around and navigate the place and help my colleagues to do the same, because it is quite a different animal when you actually get in there, and it was very humbling for sure to take my seat in there for the first time after watching it for so many years, actually, as just a politically interested person. But yeah, great experience. Lots of new MLAs. So Rosalind and Sheldon and I here locally, Sheldon and Claire, the three of us have been trying to collaborate as much as possible. Along with it helps having a leader in the riding next door, John Rustad. He's someone I've known actually for many years.
Yeah.
And yeah, great to have him as my riding next door neighbor as well. So we get to collaborate on stuff to help the region.
Good old Rusty. I've known Rusty for a long time. Yeah, his wife and I actually used to do some acting together many years ago in the old
Oh, nice.
Prince George Theater area too. So, yeah, congratulations to you, to Rosalind, to Sheldon Clare as well. I know a lot of people, when I talk to them about politics, they're like, oh, the NDP got it again. And I'm like, yeah, but look at the numbers, guys. There was a massive shift in what's going on. Vancouver voted the same in a lot of areas, but even if you get, real granular down there into some of the numbers, there were some big shifts in that area too. So,
Yeah, big shifts. If you look at a lot of the suburbs, look at cities that are growing like Surrey. There was a big, we actually picked up more conservative seats in Surrey than the NDP did. So some big changes that are happening and will continue to happen. There's momentum for change, certainly in this province. We have a lot of problems, and I think we're going to get into some of those problems shortly here, I think. So
yeah, I think we should probably do that right about now, actually. There's a few things. Like I said earlier, I think you're doing a great job on your Facebook page. We're going to dive into a couple of things that we're chatting with the post that you put up on Facebook as well. And then for people that are watching along, you can actually check out the links in the show notes for this show, and you'll be able to check out each one of the documents that we chat about here too. So let's get right into it. Now, I know you were talking about your two young kids. You're raising a family here in northern BC. You have Thomas and Charlie that you're raising here in PG with your wife Elise. So the fact that youth unemployment doubling in 8 years must not only be a solid political move for you as Labor opposition to attack this fact, but also personally as you're fighting for the future of your own kids. I got to ask you, what do you think is the underlying factors of this massive increase in youth unemployment? And we'll just pop it up on the screen here while we... There we go. Oh, it's not coming up. Sorry. 1 second here. There we go.
yeah, well, while it's coming up here, I'll maybe just talk about the fact that I actually really decided to get into politics again because I'm worried about my kids' future. And this is exactly a reason why. We've had virtually no private sector job growth in this province over the last 5 years. It's been all public sector growth. And what that has led to, we're not seeing small businesses hire that next employee that those tend to be young people. And when small business confidence is at an all-time low in this province, that's when young people start to vote with their feet. This is a canary in the coal mine for the future of our economy. And things are really challenging right now. We're seeing a massive amount of people, mostly young people under 40, choosing to move to mostly Alberta, many to Ontario for looking for work. This is completely unsustainable. We need to bring hope again for young people. I worked, as you mentioned, Matt, as president of the Chamber of Commerce here, trying to support the business community here in Prince George. I know that attraction and recruitment of new employees is one of the top issues, but young people, we need to find a path for them into the workforce. We need to actually make sure that there are those entry-level jobs that they can grow their careers. And right now we're seeing a challenge in that private sector job creation. So that's something that I'm certainly focused on. I got my working start, as I said, working for my family business, but I also got a job working as a commercial roofing. That was one of my first roles, actually. And we got to find a path for young people to have hope, that get them into the skilled trades, get them into those jobs where they can start their careers, and that's what I'm certainly concerned about. And that's like I said, the canary in the coal mine for our economy and our future.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at your post here too, the numbers are brutal. The province lost 21,600 workers just last month as the youth took a step back from that labor market, as you say there. Where do you think these jobs are going, though? I mean, it's not like the work is disappearing. Why do our youth not have jobs anymore? Are we pushing adults into jobs that should be stepping stones? And then they're using those as jobs that are covering their entire expenses? Or what's the factor that's driving this?
Well, what we're finding, Matt, is that small business owners are working harder than ever. They're, as an owner, they're, instead of hiring that youth, that extra employee, they're just putting in more hours themselves. So they're burning themselves out, and not actually, they don't have the financial capacity to actually give some of that work out to young workers.
Yeah.
We're also seeing a huge drawdown in that business confidence. Look at the restaurant sector, for example. Uh, Massive amounts of closures in that sector right now. And a lot of it is because the cost of doing business is getting much more stringent. Government has changed things like the labor code, the employment standards to add costs. So when the NDP came in, they didn't run on putting in an employer health tax, but they chose to do that, adding all of that cost onto business. They've done things to add up like 5 paid sick days. Well, that's great, but all that cost is borne by the small business owners, not by government. So government has to look rationally about what we're doing to the cumulative impacts of their policies on small businesses and make sure that it's something that is financially sustainable, because right now they're barely hanging on by the skin of their teeth. So that's one of the biggest things, Matt. The other thing is a drawdown in major projects. The NDP, we're very fortunate that many of these major projects, the LNG projects, Site C, Trans Mountain expansion, all of these things that were contemplated well before they came into government, were well on their way. They all happen to be in their first term, and they've all been coming to a close in the last couple of years. So now we're seeing a massive drawdown from those projects, but the NDP have not focused on what's next, what's replacing those. They're, maybe desperate right now and focused on some of the wrong projects. Here in Prince George, they floated the idea of hydrogen projects with electricity. It made absolutely no sense to actually go down that path, because we simply don't have enough power for using our electrons to then convert to another fuel and hydrogen. That doesn't make any economic sense, and the NDP were just completely out to lunch on that. We need to find a real path to employment, to job opportunities for economic growth, and our resource sector is a part of it. Mining is going to be part of it. LNG is going to be part of it. And yes, there will be a future for forestry, but we actually have to put the policies in place that get that fiber into the hands of those who need it, to get more of those jobs in the woods, so that we can actually harvest some of that timber.
100%. No, I can agree with you there. 100%. We need those projects to start moving, and we have to stop being so ideological on some of these things and start making it make sense. Is the minimum wage increases, especially at the speed that we're doing it at, do you think that is a major factor in this as well? Because I know on my side of things, and I mean, look, I'm working with bars, pubs, and restaurants on a day-to-day basis in northern BC, and I see it happen from week to week. The minimum wage goes up, and then I get a call, and I'm asked to help them redo their menus, because the menus are all going up too. While some owners are definitely taking on more of the sweat equity themselves, other ones are just passing it straight on to the community as a whole. I think personally, and my perception is limited, but I think that maybe this minimum wage thing is canceled out at the end of the day. I don't think it's a positive for us, because all we're doing is jacking the prices and making people that are completely desperate for a couple of extra dollars excited for a moment, and not even understanding that they're in a worse place 6 months down the road. So do you believe that is part of our issue here, and what's the way out of that?
Well, I talked, Matt, about the cumulative impact of policy. So certainly, aside from the employer health tax, aside from the paid sick days, minimum wage is another one that is not borne by government. It's actually businesses that are saddled with it, and much of that cost they have no choice but to pass it on to consumers. So it does add to inflationary pressure on, and we've seen high inflation in this province in the past number of years. We've seen some pretty significant minimum wage hikes when it's attached to the CPI. So, it's something that needs to be looked at cumulatively. Obviously, there's a lot of people that support minimum wage hikes, but we need to look at the cost of business overall. We also need to look at affordability for, what is going to help young people at the end of the day. And part of that is, we can't have government promising things that are actually going to, promise one thing and then completely turn their back on it. I remember a day when 2017, the NDP, and 2020, actually, they ran on the idea of a $500 rental rebate. We've never seen that. 2024 election, they ran on $1,000 grocery rebate. Well, they canceled that by December. So
Yeah.
all these things for affordability are completely out to lunch and are not helping people. It's no wonder people can't afford to go to restaurants because prices are going up, and any attempts of government to do anything about it are completely on false claims. So right now we're in an affordability crisis. We need to make sure people do see a future here. And right now, young people don't see a future in this province. It's too expensive, and they don't have those economic opportunities.
Yeah, totally agreed. The old rebate trick is kind of getting old these days. You know, when the government comes at you with a rebate, it's just because they're trying to make you happy for a little while. It makes no business sense. Let's dive a little further in here. Another concerning factor up here in the north, especially in this past decade, is definitely healthcare. Northern health is an absolute mess at this moment. We've got hospital closures 4 and 5 days sometimes. I see you posting about it quite often on Facebook over there in Mackenzie and in Fort St. John. Maternity ward closures now hitting Prince George. That was a real red flag for me. Small communities, we've seen them have these closures and things for a very long time. It's not good. It shouldn't happen, but that kind of has been the norm. Seeing Prince George get hit with one of these shutdowns was pretty eye-opening for me, too. I actually have a personal insight that shows how broken this system is just from a real base level, too. I have a cyst, a very simple cyst that I got about 3 years ago. I've been on a wait list for a cyst removal for 3 straight years. There's no end in sight for a cyst removal. I've asked if I can be referred to a different health authority. There's all this paperwork and red tape involved in that, even though there's spaces out there. It's just an absolute mess out there right now. So what do you know of the issue, and how do we fix this thing?
Well, access to our healthcare system is one of the biggest challenges right now. People are frustrated. They languish on wait lists, and the wait lists are actually longer than people let on. As just the example that you provided, how many people are just not bothering to go to get an issue dealt with because they don't want to deal with the system. So we have a massive problem. Mackenzie, just July and August here, they've had 19 ER closures in Mackenzie alone. And that's, now we're seeing more closures in Burns Lake and Fort St. James. Quesnel recently, an even bigger center, has seen closures the last month.
Yeah.
And then Prince George seeing that maternity announcement. Fortunately, in that case, what wasn't necessarily from Northern Health or provincial government stepping in. It was the local doctors stepping in, physicians, to find a solution to keep the lights on for now. But it's really tough for those healthcare professionals who are working in the system. They're trying to do whatever they can. It's not their fault. It's actually systemic problems. So obviously there's been years of under recruitment of nurses and doctors. The Mackenzie example, it's actually a nursing shortage in Mackenzie. That's the biggest issue there.
Yeah.
But physician shortages are also part of it. But right now we haven't built a system where the efficiencies are in there, so those that are in the system are not being used and working towards the things that actually matter. They're forced to do so much administrative overhead that how much of your time are you actually spending nursing or caring for patients as a physician? There's a lot of pushing paper around. Right now, we also have a major, across health authority, this isn't just Northern Health, but across all health authorities, there's a major administrative burden with bureaucracy that's just blown out of control.
Yep.
We have 73 vice presidents across our health authorities in BC. Alberta, about same population as BC, just under. They've got 8 vice presidents. I'm not saying Alberta has the right number, but at the same time, there's obviously waste in the system when we're not focused on that frontline care. We're focused on how it works for the system, not for the patient. So what we need to look at for the future is making sure that, finding ways for money to actually follow the patients, making sure that patients have choices in the system. The case that you have, Matt, you should be able to walk to or travel to another location if need be. If they have availability, you should be able to get in there no problem. There needs to be some tools in the system to make it actually work for people, not to languish on wait lists, because ultimately that leads to even worse problems. When a senior can't get a hip surgery, they're actually turns into many other health problems
Yeah.
that the healthcare system needs to deal with.
Yep.
Right now at UHNBC, about a third of the beds are actually taken up by patients that should be in long-term care. So these seniors are actually living at the hospital. That is not dignified for seniors who spent their entire lives working hard, and then we have them living in the hospital, sometimes in the hallway. Like, that is completely unacceptable, and it's a system breakdown. It's not just a money thing. It's not part of that's the only thing. It's how the money's being used.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. Ben Meisner, I don't know if you knew Dr. Bert Kelly, who was the regional head here in Prince George for Northern BC for many years. I don't know. Do you remember the big health rally that went down in 2000 here in Prince George?
Yeah, I've heard lots about it, and I wonder when we're going to be at that point where we're getting to that type of a conversation. Certainly, because the call back then was, "Have you had enough yet?" And I think people are getting to that breaking point where
Yep.
they've had enough. They want to see the system improve. They want to see people actually, have timely access to a family doctor, to surgical care, to an ER where you're not waiting 6, 7, 8 hours. Northern Health doesn't actually post the ER wait times because some other health authorities do,
Yeah.
but they don't, because it's just not something that anybody wants publicized, because it's that bad in the system right now.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we're there. I think we've hit break
I
glass
agree. Yeah,
moments now with our healthcare. And I think there's a few pieces we need. I think there's a few things that original event had that made it successful. Number one, Dr. Charles Jago. You had an educational side to that, and he was tied into UNBC. Ben Meisner was the most powerful voice in the North at the time and had a lot of connections to get that word out there too. And then you had somebody in the healthcare that was willing to be a little bit of a whistleblower and a little bit of a cheerleader at the same time in Bert Kelly. I think we have the political voice with yourself, with Rosalind, with Sheldon Clare, with a few other people that are speaking on this in the North. I think we need a media and we need a healthcare voice. So if you know somebody in healthcare, and we can chat about this offline, I'd love to do some rallying around the North here a little bit too. I travel the whole northern half of the province and have no problem when I'm up there in Fort St. John or Fort Nelson or whatever, rolling into a couple of locations and getting some people on board with this. So we'll talk offline too. If you've got some
no, that's
connections on the inside of this, I think this is something that we could start on. I think it's time.
100%, man. I appreciate what you said about Ben Meisner being one of your mentors, and he's probably educated you on how this all went down. So that's pretty great that yeah, you've got that passion for it as well. It's going to take a lot of us to actually come together to sound the alarm and actually get some big changes to happen. And we're at that point. You're absolutely right that things need to change now. People can't stay in this position and our healthcare professionals need us right now too. They're struggling. We've seen. I've tried to call out in the legislature the violence in hospitals that have
Yeah.
happened. There was one day in question period, I asked the premier if he'd be okay if someone walked into his office with a crossbow, because that's actually what happened in a hospital. Nurses having to deal with things like that, completely unacceptable. We can't have violence, and we can't have our healthcare professionals subjected to that type of behavior, and it's making the system even more challenged because they don't want to go to work the next day.
100%. I was just chatting with a friend about that yesterday. She had to take her daughter into the ER just a couple nights ago, and she said they ended up just leaving because it seemed more dangerous to sit there in the ER with the people that were there than it was to wait to see a doctor for up to 4 hours. So yeah, I mean, we could beat on this one all day long. My last question on this and my last point. It's great that all of a sudden the government is announcing couple $1 billion or whatever it is for this new health tower that we have coming to Prince George. But what drives me nuts is you guys have done nothing. The NDP has done nothing to fix the administration and system problems that we have in Northern Health. We can't even staff the building and the space we have now. And now you want to put $1 billion into a news release and say that this is going to fix the problem? No, you've been doing this the whole time. You've been putting more nurses and more doctors into the meat grinder that is your system that's broken, and then saying, oh, we just need more. We just need more. No, we need more efficiency. I think that's what we need at the end of the day, and Northern Health seems to be the least of that at the moment. But
well, that's the worry, Matt, that we build a big tower and it sits empty because we don't have the staff. So that's something that my very first meeting with the CEO and the chair of Northern Health, we talked about that path, HR path to get ready for it. We also need the system just to work more effectively. This should be a tertiary healthcare center for the entire North, not sending people down to Vancouver. That's partly why within the Northern Health system, people have called for a helipad to be included in the patient care tower. The NDP promised it right during the election, and yet we still don't have any details on when that what that looks like. So again, something else we've been calling for. We don't need to be sending people to Vancouver. We should actually be sending people in the north here at Prince George so we can centralize services here so that we can actually get the care people need here. We need cardiac care. We're the only health authority in the province that doesn't have cardiac care. We need proper supports for patients here in the north. Having to fly to the Lower Mainland, clogging up the hospitals down there is part of what's adding a lot of the cost to the system actually as well. It's not, we need to actually have some regional accountability and regional support here for those who need it.
One thing I've heard too is that it's just really hard to get good doctors to come and work up here too, because who wants to live in Prince George when you could live in Vancouver, or you could head on down to Calgary or Edmonton or something like that too? Is there something that we can do, whether it's, better pay in the area, whether it's, giving them tax breaks or something like that? Hey, what do you know? Giving it to healthcare workers instead of to corporations might be a play. Is there something like that that we can do that would make it a little bit more interesting up here? Because I know that one thing that Northern Health has done has allowed doctors to put extra charges down on their patients. Like, I paid $345 to have my medical records printed out a couple of years ago for an insurance thing that I had done. And when I dove into that and asked how they could do it, they said, oh, well, we're allowed from Northern Health on this side of things to make up some dollars and things for our office staff. And I was like, well, that's offside. Like, is there another way? It seems like we've pieced together these little things to attract healthcare business up here. Maybe there's a better way to do that. Is there any ideas you have on that side of things?
Well, on some health professions, they have had some recruitment programs within Northern Health for signing bonuses and things like that, which I think ultimately probably is it's a good thing to recruit to some of the smaller centers in particular. But really, we need to make sure there's an awareness of the quality of life you can have here in the north compared to the Lower Mainland, where it's ultimately you're still living in the rat race, the traffic, all of that. We don't have those same issues. We need to actually say, tell people about the great benefits of Prince George and Northern BC communities. I think that's part of it. The other thing we need to do is focus on homegrown talent. We need to actually be training and recruiting from the north as much as possible. And the Northern Medical Program is going a long way in that. Currently, the NDP government's focus has been trying to recruit from the U.S. Well, I don't think any of those physicians from the U.S. are going to end up in a place like Mackenzie or Fort St. John or even Prince George. That's ultimately not going to help. We need a strategy for Northern BC, and that's part of that is actually making sure we're getting a pipeline of professionals that are already here, that we're making sure that they stay here. And that's something that we need to do by fixing the problems in the system. One of the issues that is retention problem for doctors here is they're not getting enough surgical time.
Yep.
They're actually not getting that OR time that they need to keep their scope of practice and and the pay that they want here. So if we actually had the OR open, maybe they would want to stay, be incentivized to stay here. But right now, a lot of them are choosing to leave, and that's the big problem is they can't get enough of the work that they actually want to be doing.
Here's a thought. What if we put together some type of a program where we paid for a portion of the schooling to become a nurse or a doctor if you stayed in northern BC? So you go to the Northern Medical Program, and hey, when you finish here, if you find yourself a job in northern BC inside of this geography, and let's say it's Prince George to the north or whatever we decide to draw up out on the map, then you get half of your schooling pay. I don't know, whatever the number decides to be at the end of the day. What if that way we're helping people go to school that maybe never would have had the opportunity to do that, putting people that have the talents and the passion to do that type of thing into a program where they could do it. And I think those people are probably going to be a little bit more pumped to finish that program and then work for 5 or 10 years inside of northern BC than people that you give a signing bonus. Because sure, I got my signing bonus, but in 3 years' time, I'm going to go sign somewhere else. I'll see you later.
Yeah, I think it's all that outside the box thinking has to be part of it, Matt. So I think you're, having it through some sort of a, northern bursary program that makes a lot of
Grassroots.
sense.
Yeah.
And then the other one is credentialing, the working with the College of Physicians on if people want to come from even coming from another province, the provincial government and the College of Physicians makes that challenging. We need to make that easier, let alone physicians from other countries who want to move to this area, because there are those too. And that credentialing thing is still a barrier to healthcare professionals moving here.
Yeah, that makes sense too. That's a big issue as well. Yeah. All right, that's a lot of healthcare stuff. Let's move on from that. Here's another hot button issue, though. About 3 years ago now, City of Prince George made a move to clean up the homeless encampment here in our city, known as Moccasin Flats, right in behind the Prince George Citizen Building. They moved in with garbage trucks and with loaders and any belongings that were in that encampment past the posted time. They tossed them in the garbage. The province then got involved when Housing Minister Ravi Colon made the move to grant the residents of Moccasin Flats free reign to live on that land until the city had room for every resident of the encampment. And then some really weird stuff started to come out. I don't know if you saw this yet. Oh, let me pull it up here. There we go. So we had some hotels that were bought and sold very quickly here in the Prince George area. The first property was at 197 Quebec Street. This came down right after Ravi Colon made his announcement that the city of Prince George would have to do some kind of dealings to get these rooms together for the people in the encampment. So this happened right away. SPD Enterprises immediately transferred their property to a numbered company for $700,000. June 29th of 2023, that numbered company transferred the property to the Provincial Rental Housing Corporation for $2 million. Now, we did some work and we found out the names of those people: Tapinder Singh Banipal of Kamloops and Tajinder Singh Katra of Prince George. The sale was done by Harwinder Banipal. They made a profit of $1.3 million on that sale. Now, after that one was done, the second property goes up for sale. And that was 650 Dominion Street, which is Knights Inn. PG 3233 Holdings, they went to a numbered company and they transferred it for $1.105 million. Then that numbered company transferred it to the city of Prince George for $4.15 million. I raised an alarm when this one went down because they were paying about 3 times the market value for this. I asked our mayor about it, and he said they had plans, and it was going to be a big moneymaker for the city in the future because they had plans for that piece of land. Kind of walked away from it. They made a profit of over $3 million on that one right there, though. And then finally, the third property goes down, and that was the North Star Inn. So Connaught Motors transferred the property to Mundy North Enterprises. Connaught Motors, of course, had major issues with crime and things like that happening. They had been shut down a couple of times because the police had too many issues with them. Mundy North Enterprises buys it for $3.25 million. November 1st of 2023, they transfer it to the Provincial Rental Housing Corporation for $10.35 million. Then they changed their names to KAMPG Holdings. It's the exact same people involved in this one as well. Profit of $7.285 million. Now, Since I have been talking about this, oh, I lost you there. Let's get you back. There you go. Since I've been talking about this online, I've had some sources reach out to me um, that have had some inside knowledge of some of these deals. And one of my sources has pointed out that there was another housing complex in Prince Rupert that is being done that happened at the exact same time at the end of 2022. And he says it's the same numbered company involved. Now, I'm currently doing some work in the background to try and confirm that. I've only heard it from my source. I haven't been able to confirm it myself. And he also says that Mr. Kalan was the guy that introduced these parties for this deal. Now, as I was doing my research on this, I found out that last year, Mr. Ravi Kalan was also under the wire because he was trying to help out get his sister some government contracts in her business as well. So I know John Rustad during the spring session dove right into this, and he was asking for an audit of these sales. Ravi Kalan made some interesting statements about that, basically turning it back on John Rustad and his time in government as well. Is this something that you guys still have an eye on? Is this something you're talking about in cabinet, and will this be brought up again? Because this looks uber sketchy. I can't point to say it definitely is, but taking a look at those numbers and what has happened there does not look like it's on the up and up.
Matt, you've pulled out some pretty important work, and a lot of this coming to light, I think, is important. That's why we've been calling for a complete forensic audit of BC housing.
Yeah.
There are some just anomalies that do not add up. You pointed out some issues with the sale and purchase of some of these properties. We have other properties that we've been told are sitting half empty, even though and there are multiple in town. They're not actually being fully utilized. So money's going to certain places, but is it being spent wisely? Are taxpayers getting the fair value? I mean, the city of Prince George was correct in going for an injunction to clean up moccasin flats. So they did the right thing in that case. Courts told them they had to have housing for everybody, which is very challenging to do. So now, out of desperation, the province is trying to use these motels, but it's obviously not a long-term solution that is going to be sustainable. What did the taxpayers pay for these, and are they actually being utilized? Look at the Knights Inn right now, and the fire department is there pretty much every other day because there's been such massive challenges. We can't warehouse people in these motels and think that's going to help. Ultimately, we need to help them by getting treatment for them and that type of thing. Not more free drugs and added with the free housing. We need to make sure the housing actually is going to make sense. And right now, BC housing is a complete mess. We need to make sure that what we know exactly what is going on there. I don't think we have the evidence to know exactly what has happened, but I think you should keep digging, Matt, and we can continue doing that work to push for making sure that there's daylight into what's going on in this case, because you're absolutely right. It's not just Prince George. I've heard things from Williams Lake. I've heard things, like you said, from Rupert, heard things from the Lower Mainland. So it's something that needs to be taken a deep dive into to make sure that we understand exactly what's going on. And ultimately, if changes are going to be made, that's something the government needs to be held for account for. And then, as conservatives, if we have fortunate to form government, we'll be making some big changes.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, I'm not putting out any confirmed info at the end of the day. The papers that we had up there came from somebody online, another source that's done some amazing work. So we're just piecing it together one piece at a time here, and we're just going to continue to do that. Up next. Right, this is an interesting topic that I saw you diving into on your page here as well. BC is losing residents at an unbelievable rate at the moment, something that we haven't seen since the late 90s and early 2000s. You actually posted a really interesting graph here that we will show everybody. Yeah, so as you can see here, like we're in growth most of the time. It looks like in the mid 70s we had some people leave there. Mid 80s, you had a couple of people leave there. We did have a housing crisis there in the late 80s, so that kind of makes sense too. Late 90s, early 2000s, we had a massive migration of people leaving BC. Do you know why that one happened?
Well, Canada was in an economic boom in the 90s, but BC unfortunately had an NDP government. So
Right.
business confidence was at an all-time low. We had our economy was the worst in Canada, and so we saw an outmigration. And we're at the earlier stages of that happening now. You're seeing off to the right there, we're seeing obviously, that the big actually last year the biggest outmigration we've had of BC residents leaving the province. Many of those to Alberta.
Yeah.
They've cited the lack of economic opportunity. They've cited housing challenges and overall affordability is the biggest reasons why.
Yeah.
And that's what we've talked about. These are all these are young people. Majority of these are those under 40s that we've already talked about, and massive issue that we're seeing just people not seeing hope for a future here in BC. My grandparents moved to on my mom's side. My grandparents moved to BC from Manitoba in the 1950s. They moved actually to northern BC. My grandpa moved to Cassiar and asbestos mine up there. That's where my mom was born. And then they lived in Fraser Lake and they moved around the north in mining. So there was hope and opportunities to move from other provinces to BC.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to get back to. We need young people to actually see hope for a future here. We need families to be moving to this province particularly to northern BC. This is actually what we want to see is a hopeful place to live. But right now, there's uncertainty in the resource sectors. There's uncertainty everywhere in the business climate. That has people vote with their feet, and we're seeing that in the numbers coming out. Business Council of BC is putting out campaigns saying, "Stick with BC," trying to beg people to stay, and we've resorted to that as a province to convince young people to stay here. Not good enough. We actually need the opportunities for them to stay here, and that's something that I'm going to be focused on significant. I know our John Rustad and the rest of our conservative team is also putting our minds to that right now.
Good, good. Yeah, that's definitely what we need to have eyes on. We've been staring at ideology for a very long time, and we're seeing the fruits of that labor. It's time for that pendulum to swing back to the right, I guess you could say. We need people to live in beautiful BC again and not think of it as bring cash, because that joke is getting way too normalized. Another interesting thing you were talking about the other day, too. Of course, we all know that the drug problem is definitely going on here in BC. It's been coming along for a very long time. I saw you post this press release the other day, a joint statement from Claire Ratty of the Skeena MLA, also from you, from Prince George Mackenzie. I think, was Sheldon Claire on this one too?
No, just Claire and I. So
Just you and
Claire
Claire.
is our critic for mental health and addictions, and of course, I have a role in our caucus as the critic for labor. So the coroner's report comes out every month, and unfortunately, we've just seen these grim statistics time and time again
Yeah.
of people who died from the overdose toxic drug crisis.
Well, this percentage is what really got me. 22% of all known drug deaths are among workers in trades, transport, and equipment operators. So, of all drug deaths in BC, almost a quarter of them are in the trades.
Yeah, so that was actually the first time that the coroner has released those occupations along with it. So that's why this was significant news, and just points to the fact that we need to support BC workers. We need to make sure that they do have help. We need to make sure that treatment and that support is there. We've focused so much on, free drugs. That the NDP is focused on that, that so-called safe supply. Well, that's not actually what's going to do it. We need actually to refocus back to prevention, treatment, enforcement, and then there's a role for harm reduction, but it can't be in isolation. That's all we're pushing and thinking that's going to make the situation better. But we need our workers to. These are people who build our homes. These are people who obviously transport our food, and they're struggling. So that deserves a call to action in itself to make sure that we're actually reaching that population. They shouldn't be doing this alone. They need to know that these are our brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, neighbors, you name it. So we need to make sure that we're supporting them.
100%. I mean, one of the most insane things that I saw in the past couple of years here was our government putting provincial dollars into vending machines for
Oh,
drug paraphernalia. And then I watched that go through the federal government through the talks out there, and they said, "Oh yeah, we're not going to do this anywhere else. It was a failed thing, but we're not going to shut it down in BC quite yet." And they let that go on for months on end. And then just last month, we find out they're doing it in Ontario too. We now have drug paraphernalia vending machines in Ontario as well. I mean, this seems like it's a very simple fix at the end of the day. Number one, you're going to have rehab beds available for these people when they need them. Because when somebody decides they've hit rock bottom and they would like to get out, they need help now. They're not going to wait 3 weeks for that to happen. So we need those rehab beds, number one. You need mental health supports, number two. All those facilities we shut down in the 90s, we kind of need those back too. And then number three, you got to have that ladder for them to climb out at, and then have some type of work or something they can do on the back end, because society normally doesn't hire those people coming out either. It seems like it's a pretty simple path out, but all we keep doing is these little Band-Aid things that aren't even Band-Aids anymore. They're not even harm reduction, they're just further harm.
well, you might be aware that Dr. Barbara Kane has a petition that's been circulating for quite a number of months now on psychiatric care facility in Northern Health,
Yeah.
including forensic psychiatric care beds. So that's something, again, I called out in the legislature to really, we need that access to secure care. Northern Health, for the entire region, for forensic secure beds, we have access to only 4 beds in Kamloops, if they're even available. That's the extent of the problem for that mental health support. And people who are in these situations, they need secure care. We can't expect them just to put them in the hospitals and think it's going to be safe for healthcare workers. We actually need a more secure facility for them to be in, to help get them through their mental health crisis. So that's what Dr. Kane has done, some amazing work to bring attention to this, and I've continued to try to support that however I can, because ultimately that's what we need. We can't have these individuals just on the streets. Ultimately that's costing. They end up in ER. They end up, our firefighters having to, or paramedics have to resuscitate them. We have tons of costs in the system, but really they need the actual to get to the root cause of the problem, and that's what that secure psychiatric care would do.
Yeah, we had Car 64, Car 61, whatever it is here in Prince George as well. I think that's an awesome program.
Yeah,
I think that's something, yeah, I think that needs to be expanded. And if it could be connected with these rehab beds and with the mental health facilities too, I think that is the answer. So, one piece of the puzzle at a time. That's, we got to keep going. Thanks for your work on continuing to fight that fight too. Let's get into something a little lighter. God, we've been talking about heavy stuff here. How about craft beer? Let's talk about that instead. Yeah, so craft beer is in some trouble here in BC, and a lot of it seems to be because of policy at the end of the day. So this came from Deadfall Brewing, and I saw that you had posted it there the other day too. They were putting up their little post talking about congratulations, you're subsidizing foreign-owned beer with conglomerates. Foreign-owned beer conglomerates with your tax dollars. It's time to protect BC craft beer instead. So I dove into some of the post here. Some of these craft brewers are paying up to $100,000 a year just to operate. And then you've got the big guys getting tax breaks just to operate here in our country as well. You've got your eyes on this. What do the Conservatives see as a fix for this?
So not only are they just to operate, they're paying that $100,000. They're also being forced to pay a tax by the leader after that of what they actually produce. So they're disincentivized from actually producing over a certain amount because it costs them more actually ultimately when it comes tax time. So it's actually huge challenges there. So they've really sounded the alarm. I've been in touch with the folks at Deadfall, and we're trying to get a bit of a group discussion with Trench and Crossroads as well. We have our small business critic coming up, and so we're looking to book that. But really, what this is a provincial-wide issue you've seen from that Craft Brewers Guild. ultimately, this is again another example of small businesses who are struggling right now, and government. Their solution is more tax, more regulation. I'll give you another example. Some of them have got into um, um, the craft seltzers. That's become another
Yeah.
business line for them.
Yep.
But for those seltzers, if they produce them here in northern BC, to sell them in northern BC, they actually have to send those flats down to Kamloops to a
Yep.
warehouse to have it shipped back here.
Yep.
So we obviously have a completely ridiculous, just bureaucratic red tape system that's adding cost that's handed down to consumers, but ultimately these small businesses are bearing the brunt of it. And that's why we've seen actually, I mean, I'd say craft breweries are beloved in the province. We've seen at least 20 last year province-wide shut down completely. I don't want to see those shut down here in northern BC, let alone anywhere else. So we need to do what we can to support small businesses, including our craft brewers. Everybody enjoys, stopping by one of those craft breweries on a Friday afternoon. Let's make sure that we can support them so that they can stay open. Let's support local. I've always been a support PG kind of proponent myself. So let's support those who there when we need it. So in this time where they're struggling, it's just another reminder. Buy local. Let's support those guys. They need it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, charging them 100 grand just to operate is crazy on itself. Now you're going to charge them per liter and then put a cap on them too. So now a company goes out there, does all the amazing things, makes an amazing product, markets it, gets it in the hands of everybody. And oh, but not everybody though, because we got to pull some back because the government said no. It's like they don't want mom and pop shops out there. It's like they're working for the big
Let's
guys
not
to
forget
shut it
that
down.
they're also saddled with aluminum tariffs right now as
Yeah.
well. So the cans, we don't actually produce the actual, like we produce aluminum, but we don't actually produce the cans. So then
Yeah.
we get, we're, added cost to that at the end of the day as well.
Shipping out the raw materials and then buying them back at premium prices. Yeah, it seems like a great way to go, right? You know what? I was going to dive into ferries, but I think we've hit enough stuff for now. We can do that on another chat another time. The last thing I just wanted to kind of get to here was something that I saw on your page. I would call this your mission statement. Would that be correct? Would you call it a mission statement?
Yeah, so obviously we've launched a campaign to build BC. And part actually, this part of some of this stemmed from the ferries decision. We've realized that we're not looking to build with BC workers, and it's time of economic uncertainty, this time of tariffs. We actually need to rethink our economy to start building locally where we can from now on. That it's not going to change. This is a global phenomenon that is actually happening right now, and we need to actually support workers here in this province. I've always tried to support workers in my career, support resource workers, support trades workers. That's what we need to do to build, get things done again in this province, build it with BC workers, and that's something we've been trying to promote over this summer, and we'll continue to do so because ultimately. The government, the NDP has always tried to say that they're on the side of workers, but yet they're making it more difficult for those workers to actually get those opportunities in this day and age. Well, we're saying it's time to get BC building again. Let's get things done. Let's actually build things in this province that we can be proud of, and get the private sector to build things. It's one thing, we want more schools and hospitals, but we also want private sector led construction investment and things getting done in this province, and that's something that we're promoting.
Absolutely. Hey, thank you very much for taking some time to chat with me here today. I think these chats are important. We can have Facebook page posts and things like that. I call that planting a flag. I think you need to explain your flags at the end of the day, and that's when you really get the message through. Yeah. So
this is a great opportunity.
yeah, thank you very much. And the platform's open anytime you guys have anything going on. If you got something major happening or want to have an emergency little chat and get some info out, feel free to reach out and we can put it up on the platform as well. But thank you very much. I love what you're doing on Facebook. I'm really impressed with everything I'm seeing of you doing out in Victoria as well. And keep it up, man. Yeah, looking forward to chatting with you again sometime soon.
All right. Okay. Thanks a lot, Matt. Have a great rest of your week. And thanks everyone for joining.